Good morning. As I said before, today is the feast day of the Lateran Church in Rome. I got to be honest with you folks. I used to think this feast day of the Lateran Church was a little pointless. Why are we having a feast day for a church building? And if we're going to do one for a church, why the Lateran Church? I knew almost nothing about the Lateran Church. If anything, we should have a feast day for St. Peter's in Rome. I've been there. That's a beautiful church. Well, let me ask you a question. Can I see a show of hands? How many here have been to Washington, D.C. and seen the U.S. Capitol building? Wow, just about everybody. All right. How many have been to Gettysburg, Pennsylvania, and seen the battlefield of the bloodiest war in our nation's history? Okay, still a fair amount. How many have been to the National Archives in Washington, D.C., and seen the actual Declaration of Independence? Wow, a lot of travelers here. These buildings, places, and documents are symbols of our country and what it stands for. Now, some may say we're losing touch with some of these symbols in our current day and age. This makes symbols even more important than ever. The Lateran Church is also a symbol. It's a symbol of Christianity. For approximately 300 years, doing what you and I are doing today was illegal and punishable by death. And many, many people died to do what you and I are doing right now. It wasn't till the Edict of Milan in the year 313 that Christianity was made legal in the Roman Empire. The Emperor Constantine had a conversion experience, which is another story for another day. The emperor, in gratitude to God, gave one of his palaces, the Lateran Palace, to the church, and the first Christian church, the first Christian cathedral, was built on that site. Now you may say, well, that's very interesting, Father Peter. Thanks for sharing with us a little bit of history. But what difference does it make? So what? Well, the Feast of the Lateran Church calls us to remember four things. First, to remember that many people died, many of them horrible deaths, to witness to and be part of the Christian church, to follow the teachings of Jesus Christ. After almost 300 years, they were now free to worship in peace. However, it's important to remember people are still dying for their faith. In fact, more people died in the 20th century for their faith than all the other previous centuries. And now, there are still people dying for their faith, even today. Number two, God likes to work through his creation. In this case, it's through his institutional church. Although God is perfect, nothing on earth is perfect, including us and the church. We're all still in a process of becoming. But that said, the church does much good. Jesus founded the church on the 12 disciples, and he gave them divine authority to heal and forgive sins, among other things. Jesus named Peter the head. Let's listen to the words of Jesus from the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 16. I say to you, you are Peter, and upon this rock I will build my church. In our gospel reading today, Jesus quoted the words of Scripture, Psalm 69, zeal for your house will consume me, as he cleansed the temple in Jerusalem, driving out the money changers and the people selling sheep and oxen and doves. Jesus cared deeply about the temple. The Church of St. John Lateran is the official cathedral of the Diocese of Rome and is considered the mother and head of all churches in the city and the world. This feast honors this unique position as a spiritual center of all Catholics. As the Pope's cathedral, the Lateran Church represents the historical and ongoing teaching authority of the Pope and the universal Catholic Church. Number 3, the Feast of the Lateran Church celebrates another mystery, God's indwelling in each of us. Every Christian is a temple of the living God, the house of God where souls meet the Lord and where the Lord communicates with souls. We are called to be temples of Jesus. Beyond its physical structure, the church is a reminder that each person is a living temple of God. We are all called to be a house of prayer and worship. As Jesus cleansed the temple in Jerusalem in our reading today, we too are called to cleanse ourselves of imperfections as the living temples of Jesus Christ. And finally, number 4, the Lateran Church also represents a conversion experience. It represents an encounter with the living Christ. It is something we're all called to do, to grow closer to Jesus and to have a personal relationship with him. It's why Jesus made us. To have Jesus make a real difference in our lives. Emperor Constantine's encounter with the living Jesus changed history. Your encounter, my encounter with Jesus will change lives. Now, I doubt few of us are going to give a palace to the church. However, if anyone wants to give a palace to our church, I'd be glad to meet with you in the entryway after Mass today. But we're all called to give our lives in little and big ways. For homework, as long as you are alive, and I assume that's most of you here in the church this morning, God has a plan for you. For your homework this week, reflect on times in your life when you had an encounter with the living Jesus, when you felt God calling you to do something, no words necessarily, but you just felt led. You felt you needed to do something. And how did you respond? God bless you all.